Congressman Jamie Raskin, a Democrat of Maryland, sits on the January 6th committee. He also served as the lead impeachment manager in the second trial of Donald Trump, and he joins me now. Congressman, from an institutional perspective, I wonder how much you think about the human nature of the institutions that ultimately are the guardrails that hold things in place.
Well, the rule of law is an edifice that is populated by real human beings. And so the character of our judges and the character of the people who get involved in every level of government, local, county, state, federal, is of essential importance. That's why elections are so critically important in a democratic society. And, you know, it's a remarkable thing that anybody out there believes that Donald Trump won an election that he lost by more than 7 million votes, in which Joe Biden beat him 306 to 232 in the Electoral College. It is amazing that you have someone who's married to a Supreme Court justice who is, continues to promote the big lie. But of course, that is her absolute First Amendment right to do so. And anybody can go out and, make an idiot out of themselves by claiming that, the Easter Bunny is real, that Santa Claus is real, and Donald Trump is the real president.
Yesterday, Ginny Thomas answered questions before the committee. Chairman Thompson said she reiterated. Look, it's one thing if people thought the day after the election or 3 weeks after the election was stolen. There was no evidence. It was easy to see that was not true then. It was easy to see that was not true on January 6th. But speaking in September of 2022, before the committee, to continue to hold to that belief is a striking thing and a revealing thing, I would say.
Look, people have a right to challenge the result of elections, and the way they do it is they go to court. And Donald Trump and his team did that. And in more than 60 cases, federal and state judges, including 8 judges that were nominated to the bench by Donald Trump himself, rejected every claim of electoral fraud and corruption. So when people are out there saying that, well, I don't know exactly how, I don't know where, but there was fraud, that just flies in the face of everything that we understand about how to make a democratic society work. And again, there certainly have been periods in our history when the courts have been owned lock, stock, and barrel by particular corrupt forces in the country, but nobody can assert that here, and nobody has even tried to assert it about any of these courts or any of these judges. And you read these opinions, and they're just blistering, denouncing the nonsense that is being put forward without any evidence at all. And never forget what Giuliani said, which is we have a lot of theories, we just don't have any evidence, which is really the motto for their whole legal operation.
I saw a number of conservatives yesterday either being mad or pretending to be mad. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference about Ginny Thomas having to testify, and basically accusing the committee of only doing it because as a means of humiliating her and her husband, Clarence Thomas. And I'd like you to respond to that.
Well, first of all, she testified, as she repeatedly has emphasized, voluntarily. So it was her decision to come. It wasn't under a subpoena. So if they're condemning someone, they're condemning her for participating. But she did the right thing in the way that more than 1,000 American citizens have done in coming forward to talk about exactly what they know. It's a relative handful of people like Steve Bannon or Roger Stone who either just blew us off or come in and cite the Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination, which is their every right to do so. But the vast majority of people are trying to advance the search for the truth. This was our democracy. This was our government that was under attack. Donald Trump tried to overthrow the election of the people. Abraham Lincoln said that an insurrection is an attack on the rights of the people, because it's the people that are involved in the process of choosing the president. And they decided just to short circuit that and overthrow it and install Donald Trump as the president.
What are the great near misses, I think, of January 6th as we learn from your committee and as we review footage and as many of these cases work their way through the federal courts in D.C.? is the fact that many of these people were gun owners. A few of them had guns and weapons, as we've learned, but the vast majority did not. And largely that was because of the very, very restrictive gun laws in Washington, D.C. And I think it's fair to say that the lack of guns that day by the mob, by and large, saved many, many lives and saved us from something almost unfathomably much worse. You have an op-ed that you just wrote about the Second Amendment and guns and insurrection. What's the argument you're making there?
Yeah, and let me just underscore your first point there, Chris, which is absolutely right. There were thousands of firearms that were brought to Washington. Most of them were left in Virginia or in the trunks of people's cars because of the relatively strict laws the District of Columbia has against carrying weapons, firearms, semi-automatic weapons in public, and so on. But my op-ed in the New York Times is an effort to take issue with something that I've heard repeatedly from GOP colleagues and increasingly since January 6th, which is that the purpose of the Second Amendment, they say, is to allow the people to rebel against the government or to have an insurrection against the government if they perceive the government to be acting in a tyrannical way. The problem with this is that it's completely at odds with the text, the structure, the meaning of the Constitution. It's not rooted in anything in the Second Amendment, and it's just an urban myth. It's just a dogma that's out there. But the Constitution repeatedly opposes insurrection. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 says Congress has the power to call forth the militias from the states in order to suppress insurrections. The Republican Guarantee Clause says Congress must guarantee to the people of the states a Republican form of government and must put down domestic violence. It is treason, of course, to levy arms against the United States. And Section 3 of the 14th Amendment says that if you have sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution and you breach it by engaging in insurrection or rebellion, you can never hold office again. And so they say, well, the Second Amendment actually gives you a right to engage in insurrection, but there's nothing in the text. The language of the Second Amendment is suggested. They have no history for it. And so it's just nonsense.
It is nonsense. I agree with you. Congressman Jamie Raskin, thank you so much for your time tonight.